Peter's here. You still doing your folding table?
I am.
Amazing. How's it going?
Oh, it's always an adventure. I uh I just, like I said that initially, I'm such an introvert. This is forces me to go out there and meet people. And
Peter has a folding table that he takes to the beach and notarizes people's
existence.
existence
Yeah,
with an embosser and an incantation. You are real.
exactly. The discussions that come out of it are fairly interesting.
Give us a top line of an interesting. Um, you already did the one with the guy who was what, on probation or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's all about proof of humanity. Like, so there's this whole thing now about proof of humanity. And there's this company called world.org, which was founded by Sam Altman, which is, you go stare into this thing and it memorizes the pattern of your irises and gives you a token on a blockchain somewhere, which is your proof of humanity.
And it's when you do it, it smells a little bit like sulfur, and there's Aramaic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's ozone. Um, and so this is really just my own sort of artistic response to, in absence of any technology, how does somebody prove that you're human? And so I just went back to the super old notion of witnessing. So you witness, I'm just going to witness the fact that you're human and give you a physical card. Nothing's digital, everything's just totally analog. And and so that process is what generates conversations. And the conversations almost always are with younger people. The older people like me are like, whatever, who cares? Um, but the discussions all seem to are all people in their 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. And over the time, or I've been doing it now for a few weeks, and over time, it seems like it's getting more, people are more interested in the idea of, yeah, everything I look on Instagram now, I can't trust. Like literally everything I look at, I question, is it real? And so how do you solve that problem? I don't know. But it's fun having the discussions.
Do you give people something physical?
Yeah, I have an example here. I
Has them
do.
sign up to a social site.
It's a card. Oh, where is it? I have one here somewhere. It's an actual 5x7 card that I have pre-printed for Hermosa Beach, and then I have the latitude, longitude on it. So it's like a physical thing. And then what I have them do is I say, just do something in front of me. Just, you're a human being. Do something human. So they can write their name or they draw a picture or whatever using some pens that I have. And then I sign it. And then I do as Julian was saying, I do this magical thing where I have a stamp and I punch it and I fold it and I just do all these sort of physical things to it. I give it to them, and then they walk away with it. I have no idea what happens at that. But well, here's the other interesting data point. I would say 20% of them, unprompted, say, "I'm going to go home and put this on my refrigerator." And I love that sort of old school, like that's what my mom used to do when I came home with an A on my test. She'd stick it on the refrigerator. Um, so that, I guess, the refrigerator is sort of an analog to the old school analog to your screen. But yeah, so it's a physical piece of paper.
What would be if you found a guy who made refrigerator magnets on the cheap, what would be the magnet? Like, I am human. Damn
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Validated,
Yeah.
verified. Oh, it's funny. Do I put it
If you
somewhere?
if you can touch this, you're human.
Yeah, exactly.
Reminds me of the Discordians and Robert Anton Wilson in the 70s, 60s used to make little cards that said, the bearer of this card is a official pope. Please treat him
Oh, really? That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So you know, I it is a bigger question though. Like I'm sure I'm not alone. Like everything I look at now, and I'm always suspect. You know, even on this call, you can't. How do you prove that I'm not just an avatar? Like when I was just signing into Zoom, you can scroll down. You can say, choose an avatar. And I've never done it, but I'm sure they're like, they're goofy and cartoony. But in the not too distant future, I could say, oh God, I can't make this call. You know, take the Peter avatar and go talk to Julian and tell me how it goes. Julian would be like, how do I know you're real? I don't know. It's gonna be a weird world.
It
And
feels
then
like
what,
we would have to
oh,
accept versions of that that are even steps in between. Like maybe someone had to go all the way to put a note-taking avatar with a commitment to get back to you, like another time. But that just meant that you could be scheduled in multiple places at once. And that is an anti-labor conversation, the likes of which I've not quite gotten gotten quite used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I,
Or
I
pro-labor but anti-human, you know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah.
It already is
Well,
a weird world. We don't have to wait for the future, right?
no, exactly. Exactly.
But I feel like it also makes you like underlying is like what is a human? And like you could answer that so many ways. I'm sure those conversations probably go to that.
Or what does it mean to exist? Right. So I have some kids will say, well, AI exists. AI talks to me as if it's, what does it mean to exist? And AI has existence. And then you get into the, consciousness. And they're like, okay, well, how do you know it's not conscious? I'm like, I don't know. And I start to, I think, show my age because I feel like real to me is sort of physical. Like it's biological. And that might just be an old school way of thinking. But
I mean, I kind of get the impression that there's going to be like a balance of like biological and cybernetic. I feel like the cyberpunk language, the language around cybernetic augmentation, like how much of that person is still
right.
the human body they were born with. Ghost in the Shell has a lot of interesting material in the subtext about having brains that are connected. You've got a cyber brain that's connected to the internet, and depending on what ports you open up, like you can even feel the sensory, like the nerve senses from another person's body. Um, but that
Crazy
only if
days.
you open that port up, right? And or if a hacker opens that port.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Ghost in the Shell is a really great universe for exploring a lot of that question.
Yeah. No, it's real too. I mean, we're all using a chat bot, and sometimes I feel as if that's just an extension of my own thinking, and I you go back and you can tell to go search your old conversations just like you're searching your own memory of conversations. So
Yeah, I've seen those bots. You can like those things a few months ago, I guess, whatever. You can train it on you and then it can go to meetings for you.
yeah,
I
exactly.
guess
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like, so I'm thinking, like, as opposed to deep fake, I'm trying now, I was thinking a minute ago, you're talking about like, what's a shallow fake? So like, maybe I can hire like humans that look a little bit like me, but they're obviously not me. And then you have them show up as you and see like who's willing to call it out and how will they call it out. You've
Yeah,
trained
yeah.
them on a
Well,
few of your emails and then they pretend to be you, but it's really off.
Julian, back when we did a general seminar on digital twins, we talked about what would like romantic relationships with AI avatars as like the initial screening system. And wasn't it the Bumble CEO who was just saying we're just going to design digital avatars that are essentially going to meet and then they're going to provide recommendations as to whether you should go forward based off of it? I was like, who was listening?
yeah. Well, there was also a good Black Mirror on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dre and I were trying to propose Bumble for more like the next leading HRIS system, but yeah.
Yeah.
Who has predicted more of the future, The Simpsons or Black Mirror at this point? I wonder.
Neal Stephenson. That's my that's my you think about him, if you guys ever read Snow Crash, but I still think that a bunch of things that are in that book are still going to happen. Are you guys familiar with Snow Crash? There's a I'm still waiting for this because I think it's real. There he was the guy that coined the metaverse. He had sort of envisioned what the whole web was going to look like before it was called the web. The book was written in the 90s. Um, but in the book, there's a type of job that a person could take, and you're called a gargoyle. And what a gargoyle is somebody who loads up with every known sensor type. So we've got cameras in all directions, microphones, atmospheric sensors, every kind of sensor. And they just wander around, and everything is streamed to the metaverse. And if something happens, then if there's a gargoyle in that area, you can immediately tap into that live stream of data. And you could do that today. In fact, my wife was just in a minor accident, car accident, just down the street here, and it was like, oh, okay, well, let's go look at the cameras that must be on the intersections. Like, no, no, we don't have any of those here. This, I'm like, wow. And in my head, I'm like, God, if there was a gargoyle, like if there was just, and what happens is the job is that if your streams are used, you get paid. And so the gargoyles, I'll think about, okay, where could I go to maximize my revenue? So they go find where things are going on, like where things could happen, and busy places where people might want to. And I don't know. I think that could literally be a business model today. That's Neal Stevens.
Well, it kind of is a business model, right? Like Meta spyware glasses are trying to turn
Yeah, sure.
everybody into one of those gargoyles without actually paying them.
Yeah.
I was in an accident also quite recently, and my feeling was I had to establish fault really early in the conversation with the other motorist.
Right,
And
right.
and in that conversation, I said, well, I was basically here and then you were in me.
Yeah.
And uh and he goes, yeah, yeah, I don't know how that happened. And we sat there for a while. We called the police. And then about an hour later, it was a little chilly at the time. About an hour later, a person showed up and they said, you can tell me whatever you'd like. But I also already have seen the footage on the camera, and I can
Mm.
also recite back to you precisely what happened. So whoever would like to tell me a story, you're welcome to do so, but this piece of paperwork's already filled out.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I had no more work to do. She just points at the gentleman and she goes, the person in this vehicle went from lane 1 to lane 4. The person in this vehicle was in lane 4. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add to this? And he just goes, Yeah, sure. Oh really? Oh really? You know? And I thought it was really interesting, like the way that mitigated my responsibility was especially exciting for me because all the time you've got to, talk people into seeing it from your perspective
Oh, yeah.
if you're the person who's harmed.
100%. In my wife's situation, because there are no cameras, it boiled down to witnesses. And so the witnesses, then you are like, okay, how objective are they? When did they actually see this? Did they see it only in their memory? Did they actually see it? So the fact that you had actual digital footage is key.
Yeah. The I guess the challenge that I feel is out there is that it should make insurance products a lot cheaper. Um, but it's not making car insurance products any cheaper. the competition is still alive to like charge as much as humanly possible, like to meet the tolerance of people
Yeah.
who are or are not good motorists, like to meet their tolerance and just take everything they can from them. That's an interesting pricing model.
Is it
hmm
is it no fault, Rick, in I guess Colorado? I'm guessing. No fault insurance.
Uh, it is, and then what's happened around that a lot of people have figured out how to, a lot of agencies have figured out how to reward and punish motorists based on other types of data points that they either surrender or don't. So,
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
you're buying the same product, but the way that discounts are now applied in the car insurance world is like however much data you want to give them about you, they'll give you a discount based on A, the data, and B, the particular data point. So if you own another property in another place, apparently you get 3% off your insurance, right? Your willingness to let them know that you're a person who owns multiple properties is one axis of that, and then your willingness to answer the question is another.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of
Well, I
money in
mean,
personal data. Yeah.
I think that that's their background play when the crash happens and nobody wants to be insured anymore. Um, I think that's their background play is that they'll just sell all the data they have.
I guess one thing that's come up is almost obvious. Accidents by autonomous vehicles and like that, damage done by autonomous vehicle, maybe killing somebody, but even just damage or in some way disrupting someone's legally. I wonder how that's going to play out. Who pays essentially? Uh, yeah. Is it the Tesla or is it the owner who's responsible, right?
Yeah. But what if the passenger in the car is just your avatar?
Oh, Peter, you're so tricky. Has anyone
Or
fallen in
or,
a
or what if
manhole? Has anyone
yeah,
fallen into a manhole in a major city?
No, that sounds horrible.
does that happen?
Uh,
Oh my
there
God.
was a there is a standard settlement for that. There is a in New York City. There's a standard settlement for a person that falls into a manhole or falls because of a pothole that the city has not repaired,
They just cover
and
you up and free funeral or you know.
Yeah, exactly.
it's in the realm of
Discounting caskets.
$37,000 is your flat. Like you can claim a $37,000 award if you just settle it right there with the city instead of go to court or do anything else. Um,
I,
might come
I
in useful.
I stepped in a hole when I
Yeah,
was 19 in the suburbs though and broke my foot. I was very annoyed. I was drunk, I will say, but I skateboarded all day on very large ramps and stuff and didn't get hurt. And then I was so mad at myself that I stepped in a hole. But that was the suburbs. There's probably no coverage there. Plus the alcohol bit.
Yeah, you
Contributory negligence.
might have waived your claim by being inebriated and also by the sound of it underage.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point.
The human card and the gargoyle conversation made me think like, what if there's not just one human card? There's like types of human cards, and one would be someone, presumably a gargoyle would need to be, maybe certified that they're, uh, not biased.
Yeah, their stream is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And percentages of humans, like, oh, I'm 50% human. You can trust me or not based on that.
So catch this. You could be a gargoyle you could be also attentive to what's going on at the time versus not just passive recording, but attentive recording. Then, because of your surveillance libraries that you have, you could basically identify the people involved and then ambulance chase them the data, right? Because you've subscribed to a particular database that allows you to identify the people and their contact information who are involved in such a moment. You can be like, hey, I saw that. You want some help with that? You know?
Pay up.
And then you could just basically have both businesses, the incidental data sort of corner business with the connected to the database that gives you the chance to recognize car models, auto-populate fields of people, car models, scooter models, like whatever's present in the frame.
Yeah. And someone could pay you a lot of money to grab your full attention. Like, go and follow that guy and follow wherever he goes.
Yeah, I was wondering
Yeah.
what happens when some people can afford the technology to purchase cameras for their cars, and then other people can't.
Well,
So
that's just regular today.
that's just regular today, right? Like, oh, you don't have a video of what happened, then you must be at fault, right? Like the other guy has a video, and the angle doesn't show what happened, right? I don't know. I like to think about those barriers to access and how people get cut off.
No, an interesting
Yeah.
perspective maybe is like how we forget, right? So there's all the surveillance data, and it can't possibly, maybe it can be, but I doubt that it's actually kept forever, like for 20 years, right? Google doesn't even archives things after 10 years, I think. So who gets forgotten might be a perspective to look at, because a lot of the kind of Foucauldian kind of power structure would be in those decisions, right? Like it would be in what data is kept, right? It maybe says more than just when all data is taken, but some is kept, and those decisions are, or look at it the other way, some is forgotten. That might be a perspective. Certain classes of people, for instance, might have their data stick around longer than other people, right?
Yeah,
Or
so
yeah,
go ahead, Rick.
because convicts can't shake their digital trash as quickly as other people can shake their digital trash.
That's a good one. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one. Yeah, that one would be
Yeah.
for sure. And that says a lot, right? Because I mean, not that I'm a prisoners' rights, activist. I don't know much about it, but I think one of the problems with, you serve your time. That's what the phrase says it all, right? And then, but that's not what happens, right? You're still not just tainted, but like really hobbled for the rest of your life.
There's been a
And
lot of
this would just continue it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of uncheck the box legislature around the country. In major cities like New York, you don't have to tell anybody if you're a felon or not. They can just pay to do the background check themselves. So you're not required to reveal that piece of information anymore. But it's pretty obvious that those who are doing background checks are like basically getting that data very, very easily and very quickly. It's quite prevalent.
Yeah.
So existence is one thing, consciousness another. And what about this area of disclosure and non-disclosure, or enrollment and not enrollment in various databases, right? Like, can you unenroll yourself from Wikipedia? Can you unenroll yourself from any mentions in some of these egalitarian platforms?
And if you're less than 75% human, do you have to reveal that?
Now you're getting into the replicant territory.
Right.
Yeah, like if I have a pacemaker, is that 75%? I mean, that's a big chunk of
Or if I don't have my own kneecaps, am I only 90% human?
Yeah, both
or
hips got played.
80%.
Damn it! Now I'm in category 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one. I mean, it's creepy, but it is a good one. The originals, I mean, Donna Haraway's Cyborg wasn't just like, oh, you've got a bunch of, you're a robot. It was like, look, you got I don't know. You had one lung taken out and you've got a special stent to help you manage airflow. You're a cyborg now. Or we've always been cyborgs, even if we haven't had attachments or contrivances inserted in us because we are part of a social technical system that has us in a database called Wikipedia. I'm now a cyborg.
How about like behaviorally, which may be happening right now? If it's found that someone has used at least or like 51% of their behavior, their decisions or whatever for the last week or month has been through AI, not them, are they actually human? Like, the ways they've acted on the world and people wasn't actually human. So they've kind of given up being majority human.
Mhm. Yeah, the consciousness shifts that happen when, our toaster ovens are now agentic and we relate to them in this way.
And then how do decisions made by your gut biome affect that, come into the calculation?
Yeah, because the Kohler toilet is evaluating the excretions from your, yeah.
Yeah, but that data is literally on lock. Like even though it's personal, and then you have like a 30-day window before you have to release it to get any of the benefits of the release of that data. But then it's always compared to the previous month's data, so you get to have your own sort of data assessment plan of like, does this require me to change my behavior? And then you get a chance to change your behavior, or it gets submitted without your the data sandwich around your data. You know what I mean? So some
Yeah.
people have the right to change, some people have windows of change, and some people don't have windows of change at all.
I just
It's an
popped a question
interesting,
in the chat, but um, who gets to decide who is human? Uh, is an
I do.
interesting question to explore.
Yeah,
I
it's
do.
Rick's human evaluation service.com. Yeah. Or Peter, I mean, Peter's folding table.
Yeah. See,
I
it's
have a
a,
human certification.
yeah, that's what it is. A notification. You're notarized as a human.
I'll say, of course, I have a friend, a musician. He's successful in the music industry, but now he's co-founder of a startup called Verified. Well, their goal is to verify humans on social media.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's like 5,000 other startups doing that.
But I think this is just my opinion. And this is what I tell people as to why am I doing this? And so everything that I'm doing is totally analog, pen, paper,
Mhm.
totally analog, nothing digital. They're like, oh, can I see this online? Nope. My my position when I'm doing this is as soon as you get into the world of digital, you can't trust anything.
That's why
Like
I like
literally
your thing.
nothing.
I like your thing. Sorry, sorry to interrupt, but part of me is like, because we met in person, I was like, I think I would like to see you like in one of those yellow safety vests standing outside of the Whole Food with a clipboard kind of thing, like that kind of vibe.
That's kind of
Like,
what I do.
I know I'm just here to prove that you're human.
Yeah. And most people look at me like I've got three heads, but some people are like, oh yeah, I need that.
I think a lot of people, get it after the three heads thing because they're kind of like, what kind of
Yeah.
scam is this already?
Well, because even all the things that we're talking about, so like Rick, the Kohler toilet data and so on, like at some point we're gonna be like, okay, I don't trust that data because I have no idea whether or not it's real or faked or generated or AI'd or whatever the hell. Like I'm only gonna trust the things I can see with my eyes or touch with my fingers. And I start thinking, well, God, I sound like a Luddite. And I'm wondering
Yeah.
maybe there's gonna be a movement not called Luddites, but called something else, which are people who just check out of digital. Like, I don't anything digital. Nope, not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, someone should tell their friend who runs Verify that they should not verify humans, they should verify the robots.
Yeah.
Like Now we have cheap robots and very expensive robots, and it's all basically like, oh, this robot handles class 1 data. Like, there's no guarantees it's going to come out right at all. In fact, you might as well be playing D&D with this thing. And then, like the class 5 data handlers are very
Right.
different models of robots, and they have subscriptions to the appropriate databases. And those subscriptions are renewed on the regular, and they are verified by, of course, no one but Verify, and so on and so forth.
Has everyone here seen Interstellar, the movie?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I want to say something. My favorite part about it's not, I guess, a spoiler, but you've had a few years now, right? So my favorite part about like in the world building was when the daughter, I think, kind of got in trouble. The parents got called into school because she was being sciencey, kind of, right? And
Mhm.
in that world building, they revealed that like that society had gone very high tech, kind of like a little ahead of where we're at right now, and that because of stuff that had happened, they decided, well, people, in power decided that they weren't going to use technology the way they had been anymore. I thought that was really interesting. Like to
Yeah.
me, more interesting than all like the all the multidimensional kind of stuff. It makes
Well,
me
there
wonder,
is.
like, what would have to happen? Do we still have that possibility where we might choose not to?
I
Well, the
felt like it
Amish.
was a little. I got it made me a little bit anxious because it seemed like so anti-tech that, and particularly in the context of like we need more farmers, but it's like the world was already done. Like what you need is
Right.
a way to get off the planet. And just in the context of the story, I'm not saying me personally, like, um, how I would feel about it in that circumstance, but it felt like a little bit fascistic in the sense of like, like there could have been an undoing of her passions and interests for the
Yeah.
sake of the betterment of, this weird near
And
future world.
I found it really interesting. It didn't follow the typical trope of like being religious based. A lot, I've seen that trope a lot where it's like because it's religion, they don't let you do the tech or the science because they're at odds. They didn't explain it much, but it was like we're just not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a rich moment in that just that one scene to your point, doing some a little artifact from their future to be like, oh, okay, I see what's going on in this world. That's kind of unsettling.
I was permanently fascinated with the robots in Interstellar and how versatile they had become based on some simple structures.
The geometry and mechanics of the
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, how it swam or how it ran across the water or, all sorts of just very different movements that those robots did based on their rectilinearity.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard about that? The U.S. military found their downed airman by using a quantum computer to identify his heartbeat. Have you heard this
Yeah.
story?
I'm not sure I believe it.
Yeah. So whether or not it's true, it got me thinking that maybe surveillance technology advances like all technology. And right now it's very clumsy, right? Someone has to trick us into giving us their information or, all this paper essentially has to be assembled and so on. But over time, the sort of frottage, we leave on the world, right?
Yeah.
Our flakes of our skin, our heartbeats, the things we
Yeah.
touch, and of course any, incidental signing that we do with physically could be if we have enough data about the 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 physics of the world, then we can all be tracked just by being alive, which I think is a much more terrifying thing. Like just simply being is enough to be tracked, right? You don't even have to, you can't avoid it, right? And I think that's coming. That's one thing you would do with quantum computing is be able to take the smallest signal and find and trace people. I could find out you can already do that now with using internet sleuth techniques with even anonymized data. This has been proven. I mean, quantum computers will be able to find you no matter what. So what does it mean when surveillance is total and inescapable? Um, yeah, that's different, I think. Nobody has to steal anything from you. You just have to, if you stay in a room, I suppose, for your whole life, that's about the only way to not be seen. I don't mean to sound all Orwellian, but I was just thinking that's coming. It's the technology is just going to get better with surveillance, and I think that's the end state.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was thinking about the Amish, I grew up in Buffalo and not that far south in Pennsylvania, there are Amish communities. And I'm not going to say that I know much about them other than the fact that I would visit them occasionally driving through there and you'd stop at a farm or what have you. And growing up, there was kind of a ho 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 moment, like, isn't that quaint? Um, but I think they're an example of a culture that has just said, nope, not going there.
And that's the egg custard one that is super weird.
Are we gonna cut this?
Custard.
It's interesting.
Okay, fine. You win. It's egg custard.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a pastry for breakfast.
Rick's going off camera, so I got something important to handle right now.
Just so you guys know, we printed one.
Oh, great.
Nice.
That was my cover for the when I put the office hours in the newsletter, you holding up that little thing. It's beautiful.
I like to think about
Just a little sliver. I don't want to take too much of your
Just a
breakfast.
little bite. No big deal.
I was just saying, I
I
live
like to
just
think about the people that opt out and sometimes how they see the world more clearly than the people that opt in, right?
Yeah.
Like people that say, I don't want to be tracked, I don't want to be in a database, right? I are kind of seeing the reality of these surveillance centers that are getting built all around the world, right? They're
What I wonder also is about how those surveillance systems are bundled with other things. So, like, for instance, in our phone that we, have a complex relationship with, but it's one of dependency, and if you leave your phone for a while and just go for a walk or something, you feel like, oh, you know. Um, so what are the mechanisms that surveillance is bundled with?
Well, John, I think you make me think of like the ecosystems that no longer exist that you would have to then build up. Like I think of I I am dependent on my phone because no one else has landlines and there aren't payphones for me to just let my kids run rogue. And if
Mm.
there is something, where do they go? Like they're just going to ask a rando to use their phone sort of thing. Or myself, like there's no guarantee that at a coffee shop they're going to be able to get a hold of me. So it's like to be that level of intention or that intentional, you have to figure out how you're creating these ecosystems that still allow you for that, or you're letting go of some of those things that you're looking for or valuing. Because I think
Mm.
there's like, we could talk one extreme or the other, but my curiosity is like, where are there like intentional connections, or where might we like even get to the point where we're asking the digital world to help us
Mm.
be more human?
Mm.
And I even think like, how does my watch, whatever quantified self, start to remind me that I haven't talked to a human in real life. Like there, like
Mm.
how might it actually be that catalyst? And I think is it a company in Japan that actually has a vending machine that you go and as long as both of you have gone there, you've scanned your cards, you get a topic to talk about and you get two free cups of coffee. Like there's technology that are essentially trying to facilitate ways that we connect as a genuine human.
Mm. Because, like, going back to what you said about the kids wandering around, I feel like there was the old surveillance system, which was just like everyone knew everybody else and they were up in each other's business.
Yeah.
And so, like, oh,
Yeah.
there's your kid. Yeah, of course I know whose kid that is. Oh, you need to get home or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just the feedback of like someone's feeding them at one of the houses. And we have a
Mm.
little bit of that on our street, but it's like once we leave that community, like our infrastructure breaks down.
Mm.
I also find it interesting, like all the mechanisms that they set up to make sure that you are tracked. When I opted out of Google's AI using my email to, to train their AI. I also lost spell check for Google. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm moving away from Google entirely now, right? It's what we're willing to accept, right? And with the boundaries that we're willing to set that allow these companies to manipulate us or not.
Here's
Uh,
here's a design fiction artifact. So surveillance. So often, the tread on your boot. You've seen true crime dramas. Often people are found by the tread on their shoes, and the tread on your shoes is tracked by whatever a Kodiak makes a certain tread or whatever. But if you think of it like a QR code, and it would be kind of inscrutable. Or anyway, it's a tread that nobody really looks at anyway. How often have you looked at the treads of your shoes before you buy them and kind of made a decision based on that? Probably not. You don't pay much attention, and that's where surveillance can happen because there could be a program where these treads used on shoes are very hyper localized. So this shop gets these shoes and these treads, and that shop gets those treads. And so any footprint could then be tracked all the way down to the specific store it was bought at, and maybe it could even get finer. And so by tracking someone's shoe purchases, we know exactly what treads they're responsible for. And then if you could also like use just algorithm to, the weight of that person on that particular surface would have left a certain depth or would have left a certain pattern so that it's I want to write a little story about that. Yeah. Yeah, the unique treads they catch at underneath at the soles of your shoes. There's no diamonds. There's just surveillance. Anyway, sorry, just an idea that came to my head.
Well, you're not
is it
wrong. I mean, I think, like, for example, my company does a lot of work with Verizon. And so Verizon now, as a lot of companies have done, or telco companies have done, they've installed huge numbers of 5G antennas. 5G is super fast, but it's fast because the wavelengths are much shorter, but shorter wavelengths means it doesn't travel as far without attenuating. So they put in lots of these antennas. And so now what they're making available to developers are all the cool things you can do with this data. And the data is pretty, I'm not going to say it's scary, but it can get pretty detailed because now, where in the past you could say, location tracking, turn on, turn off on your phone, they don't need that anymore because they can triangulate very easily where a particular modem on your phone is just by virtue of the fact that they got this density of antennas. And so they can, and they make it available through an API. It's like you can find out where somebody is without even them turning on their GPS thing. And so the notion of surveillance is the term surveillance has a negative connotation because there are useful uses for location tracking, obviously. But it's like as the technology goes, it reveals both sides, right? Like any technology, and so it's a slippery slope because the more the technology gets better at doing, say, things that are helpful, well, then you're just adding to the quiver of anybody who's worried about surveillance.
Does everybody know that libraries buy subscriptions? Is everybody aware of that sort of notion that libraries and yeah, I'm starting to vibe that, first of all, the bundling of data and the hygiene that has been historically performed on that sort of stuff, it's always had a rating. It's always had a kind of efficiency back in the days of direct mail. If you got a 6% response on your direct mail campaign, it was basically everyone was through the roof pleased. That meant 94% of the mail that you sent out was trash and, and operated in a different way, in a different economy of sorts. The data subscriptions, I think that in the same way we have these platforms that aggregate information, there are on the backside of it, there are data aggregation um, subscriptions that as soon as a data point becomes available, people are trying to figure out how to aggregate it and how to, put it in with other things that look up that person. So, oh, they're on the way to grandma's because grandma's over there. Oh, we should go ahead and push a flower ad right now. Like push, 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 push. So circumstantially, not just the triangulation of your position, but also the data point for grandma.
Totally.
Yeah. Uh, One of the things my parents grew up in island culture, even though my father's from the mainland of South America, grew up in island culture, which is basically one person on the block has a phone. Everyone uses that phone. When the phone rings for you, it's usually your family from abroad. You go get them. Some kid runs down the street and gets so and so and brings them the phone or whatever. What about the app that says human contact? This is to Sabrina's point. Human contact is so important that what we'll do is we'll take the data point of the person closest to you and we'll send them the message so that they can go ahead and tell you in person what the news is. Like, like we'll just use each other as the people who deliver messages that could normally be delivered directly through text. It just
Yeah,
goes, oh yeah, no, David's in the room. He's going to tell Rick about what Julian wants to talk about later on.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just my human contact hours are up now, so I'm in the positive. Like, I don't know.
I'm in the middle of reading East of Eden, and which I'd never read before. And it's funny because it takes place, back in the early 1900s, and I can't help but think about the fact that they had very complex lives, and they did a lot going on, and a lot of interesting permutations of this, that, and the other thing. And they had no iPhones, like but they did just fine. Like they did okay. The big innovation was the Model T, and I'm just responding. I forget who actually said it on this call, but we really have come to this point where we feel like we need these things. Like I can't live without these things. And oh my God, what happened if, And so I'm reading this book and it's like, okay, well, I've got to go from this town to the other town, better get on my horse. you know, they're gonna find out, whatever I tell them. Not gonna be instant, but they did okay.
Yeah, the last few years, my wife and I, mainly me, have pushed my wife to watch this stuff. I love watching these British, a lot of BBC, British BritBox things that are from like, the turn of the century into the 1900s. Like we're watching the show now called Mr. Selfridge about an American that went into London to bring like shopping, like a department store kind of experience. It's like 19 starts in 1908. I just love that. I just love to see like the reactions to like telephones or on Downton Abbey when they had the phone for the first time. Kind of like, I know like seeing a good presentation on like elevators, how even when they added the push buttons to elevators, they still for about a year or two hired people to push the buttons because just culturally people weren't comfortable pushing like running an elevator, even though it was perfectly usable. I just
Yeah,
love all
yeah.
that stuff. So
Well, in this book, they're talking about how, again, the Model T showed up and you'd buy one, but you'd have absolutely no idea how to actually start it because back then you couldn't just press a button and start it. You had to go in the front. You had to push this up to, forget what it is. You had to do something with the spark. You had to advance the spark plugs. You had to reduce this. You had to do that. No, and by the way, when you crank the front, you had to get it so it was compression. Otherwise, if you didn't, it was going to break your arm. Like the idea of an internal combustion engine just blew people's minds. So like I have the horse, and now I've got what is this? And it's something where we are just so but yeah, it's an engine. You just got to press the button. But back then, it was like a completely different thing. And the book does a good job of trying to explain that about how different that was. I mean, it's way more complicated than your example of an elevator, but it's the same idea, which is these things we take for granted now. When they first came out, were just completely.
Train dreams might be the seared in my consciousness when I read the book about going, living at a point where there's this dynamic change going on. I mean, it's not the beautiful thing about it is it's not the center point of the story, but just these little moments where you're like, my God, I can't. I'm now feeling like this person first experiencing television. So it didn't over-index on it, if you follow my meaning. But it was just these feelings, and particularly like what they. I remember it was been a few years since I read it, but what they were watching on the television, you're like, oh my God, that must have been fucking insane to see that for the first time after basically being a, homesteader who only went down into town once a month kind of thing. It's beautiful.
Just today, I was explaining to my 19-year-old daughter how albums, like records, work with the needle. I was like, and I asked her, we're driving, I'm like, have you ever put a needle on a record? She's like, no, because she was listening to the new No Con thing on Spotify in the car. I'm like, is this a double album? And she looked at me like, what the fuck is a double? What? And I was like, oh, when, the amount of space on the record, you'd have to have a second one, like maybe Michael Jackson threw. I'm saying these things to her, and she's like, and I explained to her that you could turn it backwards and see if there's satanic messages or Paul is dead. And I just find that very interesting. Like, we've gone past these things and now they're effectively forgotten or unknown. I mean, I know albums are coming back, but not that much. Just seems really interesting.
Yeah. I think I said this on the last call too, which is that I have a daughter, she's 23, and there definitely seems to be this sort of, I think backlash is too strong of a word, but they're like, me and my friends now gather to play board games. We go and we all put our phones down. We show up in the front hall. Everyone puts their phone in the front hall, and we just go and play Scrabble or whatever, Stratego. And I thought that was interesting.
Board games are huge, market wise. And I saw a documentary recently about it. It's super nerdy, but in a beautiful way. And I think I mentioned here, like I've been tracking it very casually because a friend of mine has a kind of a culture brand that has been doing kind of operating in that space, mostly like fantasy trading card games, and I forgot the name of it. It's fantasy swords and stuff. And it's huge. And he did a couple of he's been doing events, but he did an event maybe a month ago that took over this huge space, kind of culture center in the heart of LA, and it was just like heaving with with people who are just so into this stuff, and playing games and these dioramas that people were making,
Yeah, yeah.
game boards. It was just like off the register. It was like and some of the one person who's like, I guess, famous, he's like rock star of making these dioramas, um had a bunch of his out, and it's just like people are like, and you know what? It's all found materials. Like they were whispering it, like they were just like, I can't believe this. That used to be like recycled egg cartons or whatever they were doing. And so I was asking, it's like, well, so which game does it go along with? And they're like, whatever you want to do. It wasn't like it had to be like a Monopoly board with pick a. He's like, yeah, sometimes you might start over here. See, like if I was doing this, I would start over here. You're like, start what? Like, what are you imagining right now is going on?
That's
It was
funny.
amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And sometimes the games are as complicated as a uh, stapled little booklet. That's it.
Right.
That's all you get. And then you got to bring so much to it in order to enliven the experience. And people are like, um, the rooms where they were going to play someone's new game are completely booked out. Like it's just like, sorry, we got no more room.
It's funny. Where was this?
It was at the Ukraine Cultural Center in I'm not sure even sure what area of LA that it is. It's like in this area that I always have to go through in order to get to another area, but I've never stopped there.
Hmm.
And it was Brain Dead was kind of you know s- doing the whatever they were producing it.
Very cool.
Brain Dead fantasy role playing something or other. And then they did a couple things weeks before simultaneously in Portland and here, maybe someplace else. And just from a pure kind of like measures of people's engagement, hundreds of people playing in a kind of, what do they call that, bracket oriented kind of competition.
Right.
Um, and they're just sitting there at these picnic tables. One was at a brewery in kind of downtownish, Chinatown adjacent kind of thing. So in kind of like light industrial area, but there's a brewery down there that will make burgers and stuff. And they're just playing all day. Same thing going on in Portland all day. Um, and people, they're my friend was telling me, I mean, they sold an enormous number of uh game mats. People will just buy game mats
Mm.
to kind of commemorate that particular event. I was here. Some used to buy a t-shirt. And they also sold t-shirts. I don't know. It was beautiful to see because it was like all uh a generation, I think, if I, kind of like scanned it. It's like, okay, so this isn't my generation. These are whatever emerging. And they're like, we would rather do this on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon than scroll.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, I think there's a thing this weekend. They're also into climbing the big, and I've seen pictures from these things. I haven't been to one, but they go to a big climbing wall gym in Long Beach. And I've seen the pictures, and part of me, it's like, I'm a well-adjusted social introvert. It's like, I don't think I could be in a room with that number of people. But they were like, but they just fill the space out.
Right.
And sometimes people are just sitting there watching people climb, in the indoor climbing gym thing. And it's just so encouraging to see. And they are, I mean, you talk to these kids and they're just like, fuck social media. I'm talking about like, 20-year-olds where you would think, and they get it. So I think there is, I don't know, we're sometimes doomers in here, like, oh my God, we're so good. We got to prove our humanity. I'm not saying anything about what you're doing, Peter, but I think they get it. The ones
Yeah.
coming up here probably like, yeah, let's talk about this because I'm done with this. I get what's going on. I
Yeah.
see the rug pull when I sign up for this free service. I get what's going
Yeah.
It's interesting how things move uh, kind of in a spiral, right? Like first it's about technology and adopting it, and everybody moves and rushes to the cloud, right? And then we realize that maybe having our files in the cloud is not safe for the enterprise, so it moves back on-prem, right? Uh, and I see the same thing happening with younger generations, right? Like these companies have eroded their trust, and now they don't want anything to do with technology, right? And they're starting to opt out, right? They're starting to choose to move away
Yeah.
from these technologies. Right.
And then there's I've heard about this, but I looked at it a little bit closer for a research thing I was doing, but these what is it called? Lecture on Tap. Have you guys heard about these?
No.
Completely sold out May in Los Angeles. So it's basically just a lecture in a bar, like old school lecture.
Mm.
It looks like, someone who might be of note, maybe community college professor who's going to talk about semiotics and cinema or something like that. And they're selling out, which is amazing. I love that. I love that idea. Um,
Yeah, that's cool.
so you're providing a social context because people want to meet up. And then there was another thing I went to years ago. It wasn't a friend of mine had a friend who was going to be, it was the host, but it was another huge packed hall here in Venice. And it was kind of framed as like a date night thing, but you're an audience, but it started out with comedy. Started out with comedy, and then there was the social mixer. So that's the part where I leave. Like I'm done. Not looking for a date. But you're in there with the room of people, and they're not on their phones. They're listening to a middling comic do his bit.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something in Japan about a decade ago. There was so there they call concert halls like live halls, like or live house, right? That's a place where you go play music. And they're like, this is a live house for lectures, basically. So people would go, it's like a bar, you just hang out, but you would just get lectures.
It's a cool idea.
And philosophy cafes in France. I think that was a thing for a while. You'd go and hang out, talk philosophy. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do
You
that
know,
every week. I mean, we do that in some way every week, but we do it every month in this thing called the seminar, which if you happen to be in Denver, pretty sure Julian Bleeker is going to be doing the seminar in June in Colorado. But it's like a grad school seminar where basically people are prepared to talk, and then those who are not prepared to talk anyway. Because they just bring their bias to the table and they just kind of throw it around like, but isn't this? And you're like, yeah, kind of, but everybody kind of grows up together. Some things you have an understanding of, some things you want an understanding of. I find that like the most fun thing I do is I recruit people who are either academics or PhDs anyway, out of their regular places and put them in a bookstore and be like, why don't you tell some people what you think of this? And we'll have them prepared to hear what you think of this, and they'll bring what they think of this, and we'll all have a conversation together, you know? And I just put a blip in the chat. It's a picture, and it's a picture of a very, very early robot, which I just sort of Tom Williams is the guy who's doing our next seminar, and his book is got a picture of that picture on it. But it's about I don't know if you can notice, but the robot is a black person. And characteristically, the physical attributes of a black person. And what I find exciting about that, of course, is that we're in the story pretty early on, and then and what Tom does is he brings a bunch of uh, black feminism into focus around robot ethics and stuff, which I don't think I could tire of listening about the history of that. It's such a wonderful intersection to get into. Gives us a little bit of hope for how technology might be forged.
well, that's fascinating. We said black feminism and robotics.
Yep. And by the way, Peter, when you come out to Colorado, I will
Yeah.
put you to task if you want to come out and hang out in the
All right.
bookstore. We'll have you do what was that, John? A live
Live house.
house.
Live
Yeah.
house. There you go.
Yeah. We'll do a 48-hour live house. We'll do whatever. John, is there
I
any
like it.
more talk about that? Is there like a rich history of that? Is there like
I don't know. I was there on a book tour, and this was an event they booked us, and well, so I should look up the name and find out if it's still going, or I can just ask a friend, I think, um, if it's a thing still. But I loved the idea, and I loved that, like, because it felt very punkish. It felt like, underground bar, hanging out, but, like lectures.
Yeah, it is a cool idea.
Just a side note about the conversation we talked about the inability to determine what is true, and then the idea of surveillance. If any of you have seen the TV series Fargo, the third season, which I think is the best season, but anyway, the first episode they have this intro, and it's a Stasi office where a man is brought in wearing like his shower gown and foot slippers, clearly like dragged out of his house through the snow. His feet are all covered in snow and wet, and he sat down in a room where they make it very clear it's being recorded. They show the mic, they show the the reel to reel. They make it very clear it's being recorded, and he's accused of a murder. And he says, "You're Yuri Gurka, and you are a 20-year-old emigre from Ukraine, and you murdered this woman last night." And you can see the man is clearly an older man. He's a long way from being 20. And he's what? Like, I'm married, I'm a German citizen, like, here's my ring. And this goes up back and forth for a while with the officer. And then the officer says to him, look, for your story to be, it says Yuri Gurka is the registered occupant of the house you live at. So for you to be right, the state would have to be wrong. And you're not saying the state is wrong, are you? And he goes, no, Obermass or whatever, Meyer. And he says, good, good. Then you admit that you murdered this woman. And then they go back and forth a little bit more. And then the officer just says to him, what you're telling me is a story. This wife, that you're married, that you're 40, this is just stories. I've seen the body. I've touched the flesh, cold to the touch, right? We're here to tell the truth, right? And that chilling Stasi reality, right, is I think how everything ties together and what we've been talking about. Not that I want that to happen, of course. I should rephrase that, but yeah, stories really have a lot to do with power, right? To say something obvious. Anyway, I recommend that season 3, first episode, Fargo, if you want to think about this stuff.
Yeah, it sounds creepy.
Yeah, extremely. But it ties together in the story in a way that I won't talk about because I'll ruin it.
One of the things that occurred to me when we were talking about this idea of live houses and so on was, and it went also to a comment, I forget the woman's name who made it earlier, about kids running around the community, is that one of the main differences it feels like between sort of human physical interactions and digital is this notion of locality, where, Julian, you were saying that you stumbled upon this Ukrainian community and you went there and so on. And you think about when Facebook first came out, like why was everyone so excited about it? It seems like its promise was its value was it was going to collapse time and distance between friends. So you could communicate anytime, anywhere with anybody, anywhere, anytime. And what's starting to happen now is I feel like people have just sort of taken that for granted, like that's not so important anymore. What's really important is a much more finite situation where I want things to be local. I want them to be real, right? It's sort of all the benefits and promise of digital has been played out. And now we're saying the cost of that may be too high.
Or the appeal of various things without a certain amount of disclosure is waning. Like the requirement to disclose what is in quotes real or more real is emergent. It's what's coming up for us,
Right. Right.
because some of us will not do well, will not fare well, will not tolerate various versions, non-real events.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that
The
makes sense.
the friction's too high. It's sort of, I don't want to think about whether or not this Rick guy I'm talking to is real or an avatar. I just don't want to worry about it.
Right,
I'm
because
standing.
it's got to be worth it. If it's going to have all that friction in it, it better be fucking real.
Right.
Yeah. I get that all the time, Peter. It's okay.
Well, I think that's the goal. I think, you go to these live events, like the whole notion of live, live. It's real. It's in person. You can smell the sweat. Awesome. Let's go.
Oh, so it's a live event.
There you go. Yeah, a lot. That's a much better way of saying it. Yeah.
But talk about friction, man. I just started this monthly music night for experimental music club in Berkeley, and you know, just dealing with everybody's personality and three bands,
Oh yeah.
figuring it all out. The owner of the venue, who's kind of a grouch, even though he's good-hearted, human friction is real.
Oh yeah. But I think that falls into the category, I feel, of, and I guess I sense this. I haven't done any huge research, but I sort of sense that there's a hankering for imperfect things. Like, yes, you can have an absolutely perfect picture of yourself, or you can have an absolutely perfect rendition of something. But part of the fun of it is when the imperfections are there, because that shows the humanity of it, And so you could have it absolutely perfectly organized, awesome. Everyone's super polite and happy, and that would be a great experience because you'd hear the music and so on. But you'd be missing all of the. I when I first moved to New York, it was in the '80s, and my friends and I would go to jazz clubs like the Blue Note and Sweet Basil and all these awesome jazz clubs. And it was an amazing experience, but you'd always get there and you could barely see anything because the place was just filled with smoke. It just stunk, and it would smell like booze, and it was just and at the time it was like, God, this is just ridiculous. I'm going to get cancer. And you go home and all your clothes had to be washed and so on. And then, time went on. I had kids. I stopped going to jazz clubs for a while, and I finally went back. But at that point, New York City had banned smoking indoors, and you went in. It was like going into a Denny's. It's like, what? Wait a minute. I want all that awesome disgustingness. I want that back. I can't find it anywhere now in New York.
So Peter, a few months ago, I went with a couple friends to see this band, John Spencer Blues Explosion.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
I
they're great.
saw him 31. We figured out we saw him 31 years ago at a frat house at like Swarthmore College, and we're trying to figure out who actually got in, who didn't. Because
Yeah, yeah.
I got in. One of my friends remembered that I got in, and I remember I was there. I didn't know they didn't. But we saw him play on South Street in Philly. I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, above some bar, a bar where Nirvana. Some of my friends saw Nirvana play before they were famous. But
Yeah.
the thing was, I haven't been out in a while to a loud show. I guess I've been this
Yeah, oh,
far.
yeah.
I go to the Philly Orchestra a lot. I guess I realize now. So I see like where it's safe for my ears kind of performance.
Exactly.
So I'm there with my two friends, and they go see bands play more than I do, and they pop out these really fancy ear was it the earbud things
Yeah, yeah.
for your ears, right? And um I was like, "What are you guys doing?" They're like, "You don't have these?" And I was like, "No." They're like, "Oh, you're gonna," because we're gonna stand right in the front, right in front of them, and they're like, "You're gonna
You're
blow
gonna
your
die.
ears out." And so like they're like, "Go ask at the front where they're selling the records. They might sell you some." I'm like, "I'm not doing that." So I Googled really quick, and I took napkins, wet them, and shoved them in my ear, and figured out that'll reduce it by 7 decibels. But their things were like 40. It was this really cool experience where I was like in this panic mode, like I'm out doing this, and now I'm gonna fuck my ears off. Like this is so real. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm gonna go down.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then I was standing there with like napkins like sticking 2 to 3 inches out of my ear too, and I was like, whatever.
We go
Whatever.
to things quite often. I'm not quite often. Enough where it's kind of like, oh man, I don't want to blow my ears out. And so I did the same thing. I Googled wire cutter, blah, blah, and said these loop things. So I got it's like his and hers loops. And we went to see Foo Fighters, and we kind of put them in. It's like, because this is gonna be loud. I mean, was the feeling, the anticipation. We put these in, and they started playing. We're just like looking at each other, like, this is great. It's like listening to them on the radio, but they're right there. So
Yeah.
I recommend those. That was a real experience. It was definitely worth the whatever, $34 or something. Because yeah, you don't get a second backup pair of ears, do you?
No.
Especially as you go, wonderfully gray. What? One of those Dickensian kind of like ear horn things. What?
I'm gonna date myself again. When I was in high school, I grew up in Buffalo, so there was Rich Stadium, and they had a lot of big groups come through. So I went to go see The Who play live, and their warm-up band was The Clash, and I had never seen The Clash before. And so my buddy and I worked our way up to the front, and Jesus Christ, when the Clash came on, they had everything at 11, and my ears got destroyed. But what I remember was just my chest cavity was like getting punched in every time the kick drum hit. And I was like, I am going to die. Like the audio sound waves. And so my buddy and I we had to go. We left. Like we just we were back. And that was the first time in my life I'd ever felt the physical, not just your ears, like the body of just air pressure. It was bananas. I never did that again. But it was a great concert. Joe Strummer screaming.
Saw those guys in Asbury Park. I'm also dating myself. High school.
Oh yeah, that was all right.
Uh, Elliot, I can't remember his name, drove his Subaru contemporary to that era. I won't give you the
Sure.
and it was banged up. It was just used or maybe parents bought him a $500 car. And I remember the hood was like rattling as we went down the wherever however we got there, maybe the turnpike, and then I remember being on some kind of causeway. It felt like old school, just to get to Asbury Park, and the thing was like kind of jittering and jittering, and it just flew off. Like, oh my God, the wind just bit into it, and it took off like a sail. Like, dude, we got to go back and get that thing. We went back and we kind of like bungeed it to the roof. So now we got the hood to the engine compartment on the hood, and we
On
got
the
the engine
top.
compartment open, and we're a bunch of like high school seniors, and I'm like, people are gonna think that we think we're driving a hot rod or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Great experience. But seeing them, yeah, and it was like it felt like a AAA baseball stadium,
Yeah,
so it felt like
right.
kind of intimate. It was like. And at the time, we were definitely into the Clash. I think we had a really crappy high school band, and we
Hmm.
did incomprehensibly opaque covers of their music. It's like, what do you play? And it didn't feel like a moment that you're going to talk about, decades later. Like, I saw the Clash. It just felt like, oh,
Yeah,
the Clash.
yeah.
I
They
saw
were
that guy,
great.
Miles Davis, and I don't know. I didn't feel like he was going to turn out okay. I think he was drunk. Yeah.
A good friend of mine grew up on the Upper West Side in the same building as Miles Davis in the later years, and he didn't know anything about it. He'd go to school and he would come back, and all he knew is that there was this guy on the balcony smoking, just staring at us as we came home. Because I learned later that was Miles Davis.
Hey, Julian,
Yes, sir.
would you put the link to the old office hours in the chat ski?
I absolutely will. What do you mean by old office hours?
Like the recordings. Didn't you
Yeah,
put up a couple more?
I put up one more from last week. But I do not have the full corpus
Oh, okay.
put up. But I think I was looking at it because you'd mentioned it, that I wasn't putting them up, and I was just doing that because it's time consuming. But I did put up the last one because that was a banger, and so I'm gonna try to start redoing it. But I don't know if unless there's a specific request, which I will um, add to the extensive queue of things that I'm behind on. I probably won't go back and like try to do the full catalog. But was there anyone in particular that you wanted up? The one that you hosted, perhaps?
I no, I don't have a specific one. I think it really just changes the way that I take notes
Mm,
and things to follow up on if I believe or know that those are available. So I can
yes,
go back and like listen to them while I'm cleaning the house kind of thing and be like,
yes,
oh, right, that's what I meant, like that sort
yes,
of feeling. And so my hope was to, sometimes go back and catch what I didn't catch because I'm not here all the time, but other times it's like the conversation was pretty good. I enjoyed being in it instead of trying really hard to copy the chat into my browser, then copy the browser chat into my notes file. And all the other things that I do when chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
So that was my interest. But if that's not a thing, or if you need some help, I got, I don't, I got labor. I got labor.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I totally get all your points. You know what? If to be honest with you, what I think happened is probably around episode 270 weeks. We're on 308 weeks now.
Yeah.
That's a
That's
lot.
crazy.
That's a lot. That's
That's
a
a
lot of
lot.
time. It's crazy. And I think around that time, as Rick, you probably know acutely, like I started being like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like no one is leaving me a tip. Like what am I doing this for? And people are getting real. I can tell, like you come, and so you hear. It's just like, um, if this was like a $5 or $8 show at your corner club, you would pay $5 or $8 because you're like, oh my God, I totally want this experience. And no one was doing that. And so there was a little bit of like the 8-year-old self in me. It's like, well, fuck you guys. I'm taking all this shit and just gonna go home. You can't play. I'm not gonna play this club if you're not gonna like throw a couple bucks down. And so that's
Right.
that's basically what happened. I was just like, why would I spend I don't know. I don't actually track the time. It's like, why would I spend um 90 minutes preparing it to go online? Now, someone's gonna say like, well, you could automate that with AI. I'm gonna say like, well, okay, now I got to figure out how to automate it with AI or whatever. Even if I do, even if it only takes me 7 minutes, it's not a time correlation, right? It's just like show some love. Show
Right.
some,
Emotional
show some
feedback.
emotional feedback, reciprocity, all the things
Yeah.
we've been talking about, and none of that reciprocity wasn't happening. Um, Even when it's a I'm well adjusted, but I'm sensitive to it, and so I got to remind myself when I hear that something interesting is happening outside of this because people connected in here, that kind of irks me a little bit. I'm like, why didn't you call? Why don't you invite me into your thing? Why am I just the guy doing the invitation and creating this space or platform or surface, however you want to look at it, where you can have like 90 minutes. I feel like this is 90 minutes and no one's sitting there like, I got it. This is so boring. I got to get out of here. How am I going to escape? People like hang out. Like we could probably go on for, past this 90 minutes as we do often. And so there's a big disconnect. Like, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And even the labor thing, it's not because actually, there's a high degree of enjoyment and satisfaction on my part when I do the labor. So part of when you say that, I'm like, oh man, that would be great. But also it's like, wait, but that's actually kind of part I enjoy.
Yeah. I sweep my own floors as well,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
chop wood, carry water. I'm not worried. I want to do that. That's very satisfying. And to take a moment on a Sunday afternoon when things get a little bit quiet, or I'm too tired to do any heavy thinking.
I think it's an interesting question of what does reciprocity look like if we take out money? And
Mhm.
so if it's not like thinking of the terms of like, oh, you'd pay $5 or $8, but like what else would we do in community where there wasn't where we weren't thinking of it in those terms, which aren't absolute, right? $5 to one person is quite different than to another person. But actually in terms of what is it that would make you feel um like what you were doing did feel like it came back to you?
I have an example of something. We so when British people have tea, there's the tea making experience, which is a teapot, not just a kettle, but a teapot, and the steeping of the tea and the cups and the biscuits and the such, right? And what a person says is they'll say, I'll be mum, meaning let me pour. Now, when there's no money exchange, reciprocity looks like you've taken it this far, let me step in and serve you in this moment, right? So there's an exchange of labors and an exchange of concerns. And the word mom is really powerful because it's I'll be the person that takes on the responsibility and you can state your needs in this moment. like that's how it feels when we say I'll be mum. And I've been banging away. I just got a note from one of my grantors. They just turned down my grant request to write this book called The Handbook of Reciprocity, which about a year ago I tossed into this room and said, wouldn't it be nice if we started documenting ways that reciprocity works in various cultures and various attitudes, and help people out with what it means to seek reciprocity and even what it means to be frustrated without it, that sort of thing. Because I'd been hearing a little bit of that from folks who were like, yeah, I gave my apartment to my friend and I came back to like a broken glass and not really even a note about it, like that sort of thing. And so yeah, I agree. It's worth exploring. What it looks like without money is sometimes the sense of responsibility, or the sense of, Julian says that sometimes I'd like to be the guest, not the host. That makes perfect sense in the world of cashless reciprocity, right? And so on and so forth.
I have a friend who is who organize she's such a organizer of things in beautiful ways, and she's got such this amazing network of creatives, the last and so she does these dinner parties, um and she just fills her house with really interesting creative people. And one of the constant through lines of the conversations that she and I have, we've known each other 20 years, she calls me her big brother, is precisely this. She's like, I create these connections with people, but I just sometimes don't feel like they just think of me as like, oh, you're all good. You know all these people. You must be all good. And she's like, in practical terms, she's like, I'm looking for work. And I'm doing these things because not because I'm expecting, something in that, in the I guess the negative connotation of transaction, which for some people is a positive connotation of transaction, depending on where you're sitting. She's like, I just love having people together, and I love when beautiful things happen. But when the beautiful things happen, people go off in a different direction. They say like, we're good. We're gonna go pitch this Netflix show. And she's like, do you remember that happened in my house? Now I'm not asking for, well, she did spend time as a as a agent in the entertainment industry, and she does represent artists. I'm talking like top tier artists. But even that's a struggle nowadays. So it's a funny tension. It's a funny tension. And I get that, there are other ways to do it that are not transactional. I mean, kind of like in the um just things like Rick and I talk often. We just saw each other last weekend. So nice to see you. Rick was in town. And to me, that's a kind of reciprocity, just to be able to spend time with someone who is, kind of sensitive to what's going on and just wants to hang and introduce you to people. That's huge. We sat down, had a nice little brunch, right, with two very interesting people, one of whom works at is a printer here in town that, wants to hang out and talk about printed things. And that is aspect of it. Just knowing that someone cares. And Rick also like sorted someone out because they wouldn't let me into the book event because I had my dog. So the fact that he just spent 5 minutes to go basically tell someone, I wasn't, I stood away because I was so dysregulated. I was afraid I was going to start swinging. Um, I'm just thinking like he's telling that person, it's like, do you know who the fuck you just turned away? Do you actually know? When he might have just been like, hey, how's it going, bro? How you doing? I don't think he was. So even that, because then you like, actually, oh my God, someone out there has my fucking back. They represent that they've got my back. I got you, bro. And it's just even that expression. I got you. Take it easy for a minute. I got you. You're not out here alone.
Totally get it.
Thanks for that shout out.
Yeah, totally.
It's
And Rick is bringing, I'm going out there to hang out with them. Big thing at the end of the month, Black News panel. I think that, when that came through, I was just like, we're solid. We're good. I'm okay. I'm okay. If Rick Griffith thinks I can sit on a panel with a with a major director, then I'm good.
last night we had these guys from San Francisco do a book release lecture in the store from Hybrid Design. They do all this like very, very big branded stuff. They work for LeBron James and his sneaker company, whatever. And it's all very, very cool. But, like as you'll see, we go out for tacos after, and a $3 taco is my closing salvo of love, right? I buy you a $3 taco and we're good, like it's fun to it's fun to be in community with people in a big way. Like it's fun to treat people right, and it's nice to, like, I come to LA all the time, and it's sometimes a fight between my friends who I get to stay with. They're like, "No, I wanted to stay with me." And I'm like, "Oh, is it because I bring flowers? Cool." Like so I'm trying to learn what it means to seek these opportunities to pay it forward for people, or to pay it back into people who have given a lot. And sometimes it's just easier to do it for everybody than it is to just do it for someone. Like it's just easier to be like, this is my mindset. I can do this. Um, and if you're super careful about who you choose to spend time with, you don't have to, I mean, as long as they're alive, right? You don't have to worry about whether or not your resources are wasted. Your in real life resources are wasted on a non in real life person. That sort of thing.
Good stuff.
Reminds me of one time I was playing a concert. Like w th this is with a band that started in Houston in the 80s and went back and was doing a concert. And there was enough of us that a couple of us sort of snuck around into the audience towards the end. And there was a guy who we'd known for years, and he was there. And but enough that he didn't really recognize us. And we were saying, these guys are stupid. Blah. And then he turned around and he was like, no, these guys are, and just like totally went to town defending us. So, I mean, it made me feel, Julian, when you were saying that about like someone has your back, like it, to this day, it gives me shivers because he's dead now. But, um, that he was so emphatic and really had our back, like means a lot.
It's such a powerful feeling. I get the same thing too. Sometimes when I just fucking, overhear it or see it, in a movie, it's just like, I got you, bro.
Mm.
It's so powerful. What is that? What's going on when that happens?
You, you suddenly don't feel so alone, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or it's a fundamental human safety thing. I think that like, oh, other people care about me. Like that's pretty profound on one level, on many levels. So.
We're talking about what we delegate in our lives to robots, but sometimes it's like what people will do for us is the most difficult thing to delegate. And so when someone's like, "Oh, I couldn't have asked for that," like it's impossible to frame the ask. It's such a complicated ask, like this, that someone figured out that that would be the complicated ask and did it is really cool because they're paying attention at a particular wavelength. I tried talking to my therapist about the wavelength of empathy is slow. It's a very short, it's a very shallow wavelength. It doesn't want you to go quickly. It wants you to go slowly. And then when you like start to sync up, then you could speed up together. But finding that factor where two people can share their wavelength, it means each person goes down to find it, not up, right? They bring that BPM down until they're like, oh, I got it. Okay, we're here. Now we can go up together. I'm always going so fucking fast, and it's ridiculous that people sometimes don't even know that I care about something or when I'm like the biggest fan. And then sometimes I'll slow down and I'm like, oh, now they understand how much I like it. Oh,
Hmm.
now they know that I care. Oh, that's really cool. So I've got two daughters, and I've been trying to figure out how to do better conversations with them, and those conversations are starting to show up as like they really need to be slow,
Hmm.
like really, really slow. What's up, Seb?
And is that usually you slowing down, or is that them, like who needs to be pushed to slow down, or both, all of you?
It's definitely me. I know that because I get excited and happy super fast, and then I get really well understood when I'm slower. Um, so I can operate in lots of ways, but the frequency of empathy is the way I've been nicknaming it, right? The frequency of true empathy for me, or compassion actually is what I was using. The frequency of compassion for me is like really, really slow, and and very and by that notion very intentional, like that's where it shows up as being valuable, is that it's slow and intentional versus fast and quick to fix things, like that sort of idea.
That's the word of the week now. Frequent or phrase of the week, frequency of compassion. Wow.
Oh yeah, sometimes.
Hmm.
Hey Rick, what you're saying is really resonating with me right now. Um, I know that sometimes I rush in and I say things, and it might come off kind of abrasive at times. So I do like to take the time and kind of like apologize for, those kind of moments. And I was kind of wondering, and I wanted to ask Julian this question. This week when you were hanging out with my friend Abril, and I put some comments in the chat, did you feel like I was trying to lift you up and support you? Because that's really what I was trying to do. I don't know if you had even had the chance to see them, but
I didn't. They were following the chat for me, so it didn't come to me.
okay.
Yeah, I was just looking at the camera, trying to
Yeah.
trying to yeah. I appreciate you
Um,
showing up.
well, yeah, you're hanging out with my friends at the APF, and with my friend Abril, I had to show up.
Awesome.
So
Oh, is
yeah,
that the Association for Professional Futurists, that particular uh deep hole there? I
yeah.
I was like, I don't understand this. But Julian knows this about me. I basically am like, why are all the futurists so opaque?
Hmm.
Why, why is that? And of course, we're talking about the future here, so it's very expensive stuff. But, but, but but I was like, man, these people are so opaque. They're like, you can sign up to be a member, then we'll figure out if you're in the right membership category. Then we'll invite you to join at an appropriate membership category, and then we will review your application to join at this now aforementioned appropriate membership category and area. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly I had not joined the APF for those reasons.
I can't join the APF. I don't know how.
Sometimes I feel like it's the Association of Professional Gatekeepers, but
That's why, and
but
that's why I love it. I started writing. Julia knows this because I was just like, I met some futurists, or so, like we're all self-proclaimed futurists, right? I met some futurists at the LA Book Fair, and I was like, man, these guys are so opaque again with this. And it was just this whole notion of professional gatekeeping, and I was like, there's plenty of people who are like, the harder you gatekeep, the more I want to make this free, like the more I want to just expose you, and the more I want to, just because it doesn't serve me if my needs to make a living in this frame is a fraction of your needs to make a enterprise in this frame, right? So you're gatekeeping the enterprise edition of this narrative, and I'm over here trying to be a regular schmo and not owned by your enterprise edition, right? So
Yeah,
and
this
someone
I'm fascinated by this. Sorry, go on, Rick. Because
yeah, and so in a really tight conversation that's very next to this, it's not quite there, but right next to it, this week, um, with Stanford, I think John, you're associated with Stanford, right? Yeah. So this week with
Only
Stanford,
vaguely.
yeah, there was the book club, the Stanford book club. And the question was like one of the big prompt questions was, what is mastery? And all of these people were like volunteering to have an issue with the word mastery. And and they were volunteering to be like, oh yeah, we really don't want to use that word anymore. And and as usual, I'm sort of like the black person in the room. So I'm like paying attention to how many people are saying this and how many people are white, and they're just in their zone. They're having a moment, but they don't say why they don't want to use the word anymore. And and I just kind of looked at it for 10 seconds, and I started writing a little bit of a note. And I think the note is close by. As you guys know, I like to hold things up to the monitor or whatever. When I find it, I'll show it to you. But this is what I figured out. I figured out that here it is. That mastery is connected to self-ownership, right? So it's not the how you do something that is mastered. It is why you do something that is mastered, and that you're under your own steam, and that you have all of your own reasons to master something, to be really good at it. Not that you have repetition, but that you are self-owned. Now, the notion of self-ownership right there next to mastery totally participates in the way that I view the world. It totally participates in this notion of like, why are you guys not just leaning into the language that we have and understanding it better, understanding its origins, and then really kind of promoting the best version of this story, which is I am self-possessed, I am self-owned, I am in my own reasoning, right? Which I love so much. I'm in my own reasoning around this task, which makes it make deep, deep sense to me, which allows me to apply myself in a deep and meaningful way to this. And and all of these people were just like, oh yeah, we don't say mastery, we don't say that anymore. I'm like, okay, well, I do. I do. And for me, it means self-ownership, you
Well,
know?
I feel like your approach requires a degree of charisma and persuasiveness that isn't just, sort of like it's easier to just, to play the cop and tell and shut other people down rather than saying, well, look at it this way. Um, though I think, it's a much better place if you can be that, persuasive, charismatic, you know, version than, like, yeah, anyways, so easy to shut people down rather than open up doors.
Rick, is
Yeah.
self-ownership, is it different than independence? I'm not as familiar with, I haven't heard you talk about it before.
Well, I suppose independence is a part of your sort of self-ownership if you think of that as a model. But the way that they were using mastery was like in task, right? Like I do typesetting, right? So I do a lot of like metal and wood typesetting and letter spacing and all that bullshit. And mastering it in the 21st century is a very novel way to spend your time. But they'll talk about something like that in the framework of mastery, and because it's tactile, it's human, it's repetition, it's task oriented, so on and so forth. Um, and my holding mastery in that way is also holding the labor, right? And the labor is what's interesting, because the labor and the slave is, like that's the relationship that most people are kind of walking away from or irking themselves away from. They're jerking away from slavery as a narrative that defines labor in a particular framework, and they're looking at mastery and they're saying, oh, because that's in this world, we want to rethink the word mastery. The word independent to me kind of lives back in the conversation from last week. Independence lives in the punk ethos, and uh and I wrote this or printed this week as well, which I think is kind of funny that we would be talking about that. It's so funny how you just make shit and then it just shows up in conversation. But right here, let's see if I've got the other one. Good Lord, my life already. It's kind of messy. Here, this one. All right. This is a nod to the notion of independence, right? It shouldn't be controversial that I don't choose to conform to whatever, right? And 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 in that space, I say independence is like, yeah, I'm just like Seb talked about earlier, like some other people talked about earlier. I'm just tapping out of that. No, thank you.
Okay, because I was
Right?
connecting it to when you talked about like I was thinking like ma master apprentice and like when you talked about the futurist, like are you like a certified futurist or some level of like professional mastery that's accepted by some board or you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's how people are thinking about mastery for sure, is that it belongs in this ranking of how well you do something, and our distress around the futurists that they're trying to control something or gatekeep something. I think that just speaks to the enterprise level um of the practice versus the individual level of the practice, and that people like to make money off of other human beings. So they're promoting the enterprise level stuff so that it costs a lot and that they can get a head count and then they can do it in a way.
Yeah. This is kind of like a tension that I've been sitting with also in the world of design. I feel like there's kind of like a lot of gatekeeping that happens there. And there is this idea, right, like that design is dead, right? Right. And there that designers are valuable in organizations and that their level of taste is what determines what they're, if they're good or not, right? Um, and I don't know, I was having a conversation with someone about that, and I first of all, I don't think it's the taste side that makes you a good designer. It's your ability to, pass judgment, right? And decide if something is useful or not. And 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 developing that ability to choose the right option, right, does take years to develop, and then there is a bit of mastery in it. Uh, but what I've kind of landed with is this kind of indigenous perspective of knowledge keepers, right? Like we need to preserve certain things and certain ideas that are useful, right? And not to present ourselves as the ultimate, like, oh, I coined this term and I am so special because you know, it's kind of like about learning to preserve what matters, right? And having ways to share that knowledge and to pass it down. I'm not sure. It's like a
That's a heavy lift.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
a big one.
that disagree with you or something. The missus over there. Um, uh, she's very happy because she had a great surf, so I love that. So and I'm just saying, I get what you're saying, Seb. And I think the thing that feels like a lift to me is that I don't want to deny that I have an ego and a well-adjusted one, so that I can bring something into a room and have that good feeling of like, look what I did to these people. I touched them in a way where they're like, they want to read my stuff, they want to buy my book, and none of this stuff makes me a billionaire, right? I do it because, even when my company Amada was spent a lot of time like on the rocks. And my decision criteria for continuing to go was I want a better story so that when Rick and I are sitting at the end of the bar or whatever in our wonderful kind of retirement, whatever that would mean for a character like Rick, we're still on. It's like, Tell me that story." And if the story ended like I gave up, kind of thing, then that sucks for a life. You want the thing is like, man, I fought through that, and I dragged the whole thing through this miserable leech filled swamp, and we got to the other side. And the whole time I was saying to this dying enterprise, it wasn't dying, it was like I could have left it behind. It could have been that scene in the movie where it's like, bro, I can't carry you, you're on your own. But I wanted to say to it, and which included thousands of people who were hoping, I want to say like, I got you, bro, I got you, we're gonna do this, we're gonna get through this together. Tomorrow might be better. And so I think it's hard. What am I saying? It's hard to just kind of say like, hey, this is, I don't, this isn't, this is for you. People want to do that. And I get there's spectrums of that. And I think that's where the discernment for the subtype characters, like, is this person for us or are they for them? Are they self-involved? Am I seeing registers of self-involvement? Or whatever the expression is. A friend of mine asked me several months ago, it's like, how's so and so doing? And I had a falling out with this so and so. And I said, it just felt like they were just in the game for themselves. It genuinely felt that way. And that was my assessment. But someone else could look at it and be like, no, they're doing the right thing. They should be aggrandizing themselves. They should be dismissing their association with you. They shouldn't be saying, hey, I learned so much from Julian and I'm grateful for that. And I'm doing this thing here because of the platform he created for me, I'm giving away a lot. But they didn't. They're like, fuck you. I didn't get anything from you, despite the fact that I asked if I could be a part of what you're building and do that for 10 years. And now I'm like doing my own thing. And they're saying like, I don't feel like I'm a part of what you're doing. It's like, you're doing all these other things. You're not connecting back. So later for you. And so this person said like, yeah, I worked with them. They sort of feel like a bit self-involved. And I was like, that's perfect. It was perfect because they essentially affirmed what I was saying. And I don't think they were just telling me what I wanted to hear. They were
But
like, yeah,
but it's
you're right.
interesting because like self-involvement, right? And self-aware. Like it feels like if they were self-aware, they'd probably I mean, I don't know this person, so uh but like they would be aware of that oh, I've learned and grown because of this association and you know, but it feels like you have to cut that self-awareness off to be self-involved in the sense that like I'm a singular I arise from myself and nothing else and that's it.
Yeah. I hope
To
that
me,
connects, Steph. I might have gone on a tangent, I realize.
sorry. And I
He
responded.
totally did. It was
Just go,
so
hey,
much information.
what's going on? You okay,
It
bro?
was great. It was great though. Because John's right. Like it's a tricky I was gonna complete the sentence with anyone with any self-awareness is, and if they want relationships is gonna be in therapy. But but the other part of it was that you do sort of have to toss away some of that awareness and then simply just act without
Mm,
the awareness,
mm,
or the version of that feels like the insult is that they have the awareness and they've thought about it and they're like, we're not worth the attribution.
mhm,
um I tell people who work for us that the biggest compliment that they could give us is to treat us as if they'll always want something from us, right? Treat us like we'll always be valuable to you. And that at some point, 10 years down the road, you're going to come knocking on my door asking for a letter, and I'm going to be able to give it to you because you and me are still tight and we're still good. And that you've put me as a footnote in your really amazing career. And that feels good to me. Like someone said, what's your greatest ambition? I said, to be a footnote in a dozen people's careers and to have my own life, you know? And it feels good to be a footnote in somebody's shit, Like, and I can't figure out sometimes if people are just so lazy they don't want to write footnotes or if I don't qualify. And
I
that's
feel
the
that
tension.
tension. I feel it. And I will say, Rick, you're a footnote in my life. I feel like you've taught me a lot of things. I wanna acknowledge it right now. The same goes for you, Julian, right? You've taught me a lot of things. You've created this space that's allowed me to explore a bunch of ideas. Um, so I do think that you guys are valuable, right? I do
Yeah,
think
bro,
the space is valuable.
yeah, thanks for that, Seb. I genuinely
Can I
appreciate
just say something,
it. Oh
Julian?
yeah,
Yeah, sorry. I'm always this time of the day is with kids around me and everything. It's like, yeah, in Norway, that's a little bit difficult, but it's always so nice to see you guys, and I'm so appreciative of all these meetings. I haven't really been able to to say this to you, but yeah, like you were saying that I've been interested in critical and speculative design for a long time, but you have been really a great inspiration. So I think it's so fantastic, and I wish that I could contribute more in the future when it comes to both like the economics and everything. At the moment, I'm a PhD scholar, so the economics isn't that good, but I'm hoping that, yeah, I think it's great to be a part of this environment and hope to be able to do that further because, yeah, science fiction and some of your works have been the greatest um, inspiration. It's called in Norwegian, inspiration. Yeah. Uh, And it would be so great to meet all of you in the US. Hopefully we can do that one day.
thank you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. You've been a great inspiration and you still are. So I'm in the final of my PhD. So I need like really encouragement and help and yeah.
What's your PhD in?
Oh, don't don't
Where's
go there.
where's the nearest air sickness bag?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Don't ask.
What isn't it about?
Yeah.
Maybe you could give a presentation in a couple of weeks. That would be great. Give 10 minutes on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that thanks for saying that, Rick, because I think, the whole side projects thing is meant to be like partial. Like I almost prefer things where
Sorry.
people are like, I'm just trying to figure things out. This is here's where I'm at kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like as opposed
Yeah.
to, yes, finish,
I'm
polish,
in the
check out my
last part of my PhD. I don't feel I have any help. Like yeah. it's really nice to be a part of this gang. So yeah, but it's tough.
It is
No
tough.
money, no
It-
money, no help. Yeah.
Reach out. We're happy to help you.
Yeah, likewise. I remember when my PhD advisor, this is a long time ago, but he saw me walking on the steps in the building, drinking coffee while reading a paper. And he said, first, that's dangerous. Stop doing that because there's like no lid on the coffee. He's like, you're gonna hurt yourself or something. But then he said, he started telling me that day and for many days, stop reading. I was like, I can't. I read this paper, and then there's like 30, citations at the end, and then they're all interesting. He's like, stop reading, just write, stop, just write and rewrite. And it was hard for me to, you get in that loop. I remember that last year. It was just hard to stop trying to like, it's so interesting, but it's a thing you want to have it be like a thing, like a project that ends, right? And that's what I found hard because everything was so interesting at the time.
Yeah. My
Oh,
when I was towards the end of mine and I really had to finish it up. My wife told me last week and she was like, there's a 10-year limit for the PhD things. I was like, what? I've never heard of that. I think you made that up. And so she started Googling. She's like, yeah, well, so it's like advised. I was like, okay, so it's not a law. Anyway, that was parenthetical thing, but like when I was at the end and I wanted to finish it before I moved to LA to go teach, because I was like, only one other professor in my department that had a PhD, and I was sort of like, this is bullshit. These people they need a PhD. Let me finish mine up. Let me finish mine up. And I had a ritual where I stopped reading and I would just go to the cafe. I had a job at the time, and I would go to a cafe early in the morning and just write for like 90 minutes, kind of thing with a coffee. And but then the problem was like I kept writing because I was like, let me get everything in. And I can't remember if it was my advisor. I can't remember if it was Donna or my at the time fiance, no, girlfriend, who said, just fucking press print. What's wrong with you? It'll be fine. Like you've proven your ability to produce, meaningful knowledge and to circulate ideas. You're good. We just need this thing bound so we can bless you and say go on, continue your life. So I think that's a big hang up for grad students. Big hang up. I bet if I don't get this right, this is going to ruin my professional academic career. I have to do something that, uh, that proves the entanglement of time space. Otherwise, what good am I?
What year did you finalize your PhD? How long was that?
That would have been summer of I walked, I think it was the summer of 2004, 2005, right?
Yeah.
I matriculated into UC Santa Cruz probably 1992. So there you go. 92 or 93. Three
Yeah.
years, just I was adamant about finishing up quickly. I didn't want to hang around, but not so quickly that I didn't do stuff. So a great time, 2 or 3 years, I think. I guess it was three
Yeah.
years in Santa
Wow.
Cruz actually, and then moved back to New York once I was like, I need more than a beach town. I need a little color. And so moved back to New York with the intent it's like I could finish this up probably in a year, and then got totally distracted because the .com was happening. Started a cyber cafe in Fort Greene. I mean, just life kind of went on. And maybe every time I moved apartments or opened up the closet that I was nervous to open up because I thought things were going to spill out, I'd see a box and be like, what's in this box? Open it up. It's like, oh shit, there's my dissertation. Unfinished still. I put the lid on the box and close the door and walk away.
But did you feel that you had a good, like your tutor must have been a good tutor?
Yeah, I
She
mean,
helped you a
it's
lot.
like
She
I was
was,
working with Donna Haraway, Jim Clifford,
yeah,
Angela Davis. They were amazing.
yeah.
Inspiring.
I think a lot
But at
of
the same
things
time, they weren't holding my hand.
tutors.
They were like, you got to do this.
Yeah,
There's only, I mean, I think, probably there was a gap where we didn't have much communication because I was doing other things. And uh it wasn't until I think when there was a prospect of teaching, coming, going away from being computer programmer to teaching that I was like, I should really finish that up. And I remember Donna sent me a note where she was like, you should finish this before I fucking retire. She didn't say fucking.
Wow. Yeah.
That was the sentiment. It's like, let's get this done. And there's also analytics that I think were probably semi on people's minds. Departments don't want to show that they've got a bunch of loosey-goosey people screwing around, not finishing the work. The
No.
funding implications, all that kind of stuff, which I totally get, and is
So they
really,
should be interested in just getting people through, I think. That would be the
yeah,
best.
and meaningfully. I mean, sometimes they're like, yeah, there was a thing. Uh, I don't think I was ever a case for it, but there was a thing for Joel. Have you heard of this? The terminal masters.
Yeah, so my program, I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia. We had no terminal masters,
What's
and
terminal masters? Is
it
that
means if you go like if you all but dissertation, if you don't finish the PhD, but you've gone through all your coursework, enough coursework,
oh
you
yeah.
get a master's degree given to you.
Oh,
It's
but
a
you have
little
a
bit of
master's
kind of
degree.
like a booby prize. I always looked at
Yeah.
it as a booby prize. Like you're not going to finish writing this. You're all a mess. Like we just need to get you out of here, kind
I'm
of thing.
glad I didn't have terminal masters in my program. So because I dropped out of high school when I was 16 and got in the US a GED. It's like a high school diploma but without finishing. So and I had like before then I just did stuff for a few years before community college. And but I had a lot of my friends make fun of me. Like it was an easy butt of any joke was or situation they could be like, "Oh, drop out." And so I had a lot of regret with that. And my grandfather had a PhD and was a big scientist. So like for me, I think it was good I didn't have the terminal masters and a couple other things because I possibly would have stopped.
Hmm.
So it helped me with that regret of the high school thing to just say I'm
But
not gonna quit.
these master things, I've never heard about that. It's like, um, I don't understand this because it's like, it's not a, what do you call it, videregående in Norway. It's not
Oh,
like upper secondary school.
well,
It's
one thing I should say, Julian, I don't know about you, but most of the people that were in the PhD program I were in already had a master's degree. I
Yeah.
forgot. I didn't. I just had a bachelor's degree. So the terminal masters is if you don't already have a master's degree, that like in my program the first 2 years, well, it's different for everyone. There's 2 years worth of coursework depending how many years it takes you. So you get to a certain amount of coursework and they say, okay, you've done all the coursework. Now you pass the thing. In my program you have to give like a presentation where they say you're now allowed to go do research independently forever how long.
you're now allowed to do that, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In my program it was different. We didn't have a Julian, you may have had this. I didn't have the typical exam.
Yeah, we had
Um,
we had the exam before you could go off and just be done with coursework. I forget what it was called.
And luckily called the qualifying. Yeah,
Qualifying.
we didn't have that. I had to do a little bit of initial research and have a portfolio and then do a portfolio review. We're like a three-person committee before getting your full five-person. And I had to, it's like a defense of being ready. It was much better than an exam, I'm sure. You know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this could be discussed a lot. These things. I mean, it's crazy how, yeah. I've been through like 5 years of things that are not good.
One thing I'll recommend, there's a newsletter I still get to this day. Shit, it's been 18 years. This email newsletter called All But Dissertation. Like if you it's the AB it has these like nice like kind of therapy like things. I think it's weekly. I still get it. I never unsubscribed just because, I still like to see like what are they recommending to people that are in moments where they feel
I'm gonna
like
jump off this.
stuck.
Yeah, that's
That
funny.
might be
Like
useful if you
Yeah.
look that up.
Mike
Yeah,
Mantero for
that's
academic.
why I don't want to join because I'm just too emotional. The PhD is killing me.
Yeah, be careful of that too, because
Yeah.
it can affect. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's affecting you, but that's where maybe
I
the
want to
newsletter is
I want to
helpful.
have credit for my IDs. And yeah, I want my IDs to be recognized and be credited. And yeah, that's what I want. And I love being a part of this gang. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Suneba. You're kind of reinforcing my feeling of why I don't want to get a PhD.
Yeah.
I When I was writing my master's thesis, um, I lost funding halfway through and I had to wrap it up in like 2 months. And I feel like I left out a lot of things. And, I'm not happy with the quality of it, even though it might be useful actually. Um, but yeah, sometimes you just have to treat it as a transaction and wrap it up so you get your life back.
That's how I feel mine ended. I'm very happy with it, but I have not gone back to it, and I don't think anyone else has. It was fine, and I took very sincerely the the email. I kind of vaguely remember Donna sending me, which was basically like, you know, sh in the way my recollection is like, she's like, you're good. You're good. You got nothing to prove. Look at all the things you've done, even outside of academia. It's time to start that chapter, the next chapter, whatever. It's time to start, what you're doing. You're already doing it. Like go with the with the credentials, because then you can use them when you need to and ignore them when you don't. Um, you're good. Yeah, I do remember saying one thing. She's like, and I don't know. I think I've said this before, but I'd like to remember it because I don't know if she said it in a way of matter of like kind of warm concern. She's like, "You're an autodidact." I can't remember if she said that like kind of like that's amazing or kind of like that might be a problem. You might want to really figure that one out.
All right, handsome people. I gotta run.
Yeah, I gotta run.
Good hanging out. Good
Um,
times. I'm seed this in your brains. By the way, Joel, also high school dropout. Love that there's another one in the room.
Yeah.
Uh, as it turned out for me, I had to like drop out of high school just to get myself educated. Like it was just the wrong place to be educated. American high school was just a bad idea. They said things like, if you didn't dress that way, maybe they wouldn't beat you up, is
Oh.
basically my experience in high school.
Yeah, and now I'm at this end of it, I'm happy that I did it. I'm happy for myself that I had the guts to not fall into that system. During it was different, but I'm happy now. I don't recommend it to my kids, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I don't recommend it to my kids either. They went straight out of high school to college. You know, they'll get all the support to make all the wise decisions. I think the reason why I didn't make those decisions was because they weren't wise for the support level that I had,
Can I
you
just
know?
say something? When it comes to that, I agree totally. And I've been fighting the education system in my town and in Norway. So I think that's why I receive a lot of like not good feedback because I agree totally with you. The last comment, um, I've fought the system for many years and I totally agree. So yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
saying that.
Oh, sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
systems
gonna keep
systems are
fighting.
hard on systems
I'm
are
gonna
hard on
keep,
humans.
yeah.
yeah.
And you know what? It's not the only education system that it should be more creative. And I've taught that system so many times, and that could be a real interesting speculative design idea. We could go come together and actually change this system for our kids. I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. Like, what would an alternative to a PhD look like where it's not tied to that archaic structure, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of allows other ways of knowing to be acknowledged as knowing, right? I had a really hard time in my thesis, kind of like proving to my professor that these things that I was trying to talk about were from my lived experience, right? And that had value in it, right? It wasn't coming from somebody who wrote it and I'm just kind of pasting it in and talking about it. And you know, the things that we consider knowledge, right, are maybe not right? Like they don't fit that structure of academia so well, right? And sometimes you got to play by the game and wrap it up, right? Just write it, cite it, format it in whatever style it needs to be formatted in,
Just press
submit
print.
it.
Just press print.
Yeah, I'll just say
Express print, yeah.
I think you need to push it down through K through 12. I know this is a big thing. I won't say too much, but like my wife's a middle school special ed teacher, and I think it has to go all the way down. I'm sure no one here will disagree probably that, you know, college, you know, grad school, college, all the way through K through 12. It's just too I don't know, formulaic. It's just like a fixed system. It doesn't seem to make sense to me, you know. That like there could be people that are being told they're not good at thinking, that could be our next Einstein just because they think differently. You know, it's just a shame that they're kind of labeled certain ways, and I
Yeah,
don't know. It's a
I've
big
been
thing, but
teaching from in arts and crafts this course from 5th to 10th grade, and then from first like year in college till third year, and then now in bachelor's. And I see how especially boys, if you change the way like more to speculative design and that like futures thinking way of thinking, and also more practical ways of working, they will, I guarantee you that I've experienced that they will actually get through college and everything, because I've used these methods in my own education and it works. So it's just really difficult to implementing this in the Norwegian teaching system and everything. But I hope we'll get there. It's just really tough.
Difficult everywhere,
Yeah,
right? And this is something that I argue here a lot of the times, right? Like our education system has trained us to act like machines and
yeah,
to reproduce things faster and work for efficiency.
yeah.
And it doesn't really reward creativity. It doesn't reward
No, and
imagination.
especially boys. I mean, I grown up only with sisters, but I have two sons, and I've been 100% alone mom since they were born. So I've also had boys in my classes in interior and yeah, design courses. And one thing, I mean, if you introduce future thinking, I've been doing this for a while, and speculative design, I mean, the way they have evolved, and it's been so positive. And I've done this since yeah, since way back in my hometown, but they just haven't recognized it, or yeah,
Gotta run, you guys. Sorry.
yeah.
See you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
see you next time.